So it's Friday morning. I'm talking to Omar Cruz, who's with the Himalayan Drug Company.
That's right.
Himalayan Drug Company. What's with the drugs? We call it pharmaceutical here.
Well, before there were pharmaceuticals, the drugs and the medicines of our ancestry were herbs, plants, medicines, foods. The concept of pharmaceutical drugs is very new, so I think we still have the longevity on our side versus theirs. So Himalaya Drug Company is a company based out of Bangalore, India. We're in over 80 countries. In 37 of them, you'll actually see us in clinics and pharmacies as a drug company, and in North America, like in Canada today, you'll see us in retail sides as well.
Okay, now Himalayan, that's like Ayurvedic stuff?
Well, actually, that's kind of a misnomer because there is no such thing as an Ayurvedic herb. There's an Ayurvedic way of understanding an herb. There's an Ayurvedic way of predicting the action of an herb. There's even an Ayurvedic way of predicting a side effect for an herb. But there's nothing uniquely Ayurvedic about a plant itself. So echinacea or golden seal, even pasta might fall into the Ayurvedic understanding, but in and of itself, there's nothing Ayurvedic inside of a plant.
Okay, you're talking this morning about Ayurvedic and its relevancy to health and its roots and how it differs from Western medicine. Please elaborate on that.
Well, the theory that we tend to work from is quite eloquent if we just look at its simplicity. The idea of autopsy, of studying the dead, was very controversial and even illegal in terms of historical India as well as in Chinese medicine. And the reason being, of course, is that even dead tissue had the potential of spreading disease. So in terms of traditional Chinese medicine and in Ayurveda, historically, you could only see disease as it manifested from the beginning through to the ending, but when the disease consumed the human body, at that point, they were not allowed to investigate it. Whereas in the Western medicine, they started with the terms of autopsy, so they actually started their understanding of disease from the point of death backwards. So if you look at those two concepts, traditional systems of medicine like Chinese medicine, Thai medicine, Ayurvedic medicine began with the beginning of disease state and moved forward. In Western medicine, they started at the end and came backwards. Those two opposite directions is what made Ayurveda better at prevention, in my opinion, versus in Western medicine where you see a more focus on hard interventions and massive drugs that would then stop or halt the progress of death. And so because of these two opposite directions, there's totally different focuses on the quality of life. Either one, stopping death, or two, preventing death from occurring.
Okay, let's talk about some of your formulations. Now you've got supplements. Now I didn't know Ayurvedic, medicine had actually, put their medicine in supplementation form.
Well, the supplement is a term that we use today, and the full word, of course, is dietary supplement, which means you're supplementing your diet with these micronutrients. So, in fact, if you look at the ingredients within these supplements that we make, they're foods: turmeric, cardamom, cinnamon, pepper, shatavari, asparagus, racemosus. In other words, all of these are foods, truly food supplements. And so when we think about it from that regard, it's simply another way of utilizing food in terms of prevention.
Okay, tell me some of the most popular food or herbal supplements.
Turmeric probably comes into mind first because it has such popularity and such grandiose amount of popularity in the media as well. So I would say turmeric is probably one that we're all familiar with as a spice.
And what's that good for?
Well, turmeric is massive coloration. You can see the big, bright colors of the turmeric root. Anytime you see colors in nature or in plants, you can assume that these are all flavonoids. Flavonoids are, of course, what absorbs radiation from the sun and prevents it from damaging the plant itself. So they represent the antioxidants within the plant family. So the brighter the berry, the more nutritious the ingredients. So when you look at turmeric and you see this bright yellow curcuminoids, we get an idea of how much vibrancy, how much strength, and how much antioxidant potential something like that plant has. So wherever there's a need for a antioxidant, which is going to be anytime the body's going to produce inflammation, it starts with a free radical. You would need to balance that offset with antioxidants in the diet, and that might be from fresh fruits and vegetables, including some of the root-bound vegetables and root-bound rhizomes like turmeric.
Okay. Let's go over to some of the doshas or body types you're speaking of, and some of the emotions that were related to that, and things that were used to deal with that from a supplement point of view. Because that really impressed me this morning when you were talking about that. 3 body types.
Yeah, the concepts of the tridoshic theory that were described in Ayurveda are very foundational to our understanding of all cosmology, being Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Vata being the combination of Akash and air, Pitta being fire and a flammable liquid, and of course earth being water and earth or soil. These ways of looking at it is not very different from the way we interpret even things like dietetics. In dietetics, they look for 3 basic groups: carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. In other words, everything you're consuming will fall into one of 3 categories. And by understanding what category the food group falls into, they can predict what a deficiency or an excess might create in terms of physiology. So much in those terms, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha is a way of understanding our dietary influence, mental influence, and understanding where a deficiency or excess might create imbalance.
Let's take Vata, for example. Run me through it.
So Vata is fed by wind and ether, or Akash, so aspects of the mind, aspects of consciousness, aspects of wind. So mental activity. Wind, of course, has a very drying effect on the human system. It has a drying effect on the environment altogether. So where we see dryness as a condition in the human body, we would assign it to that dosha of Vata. Now the next question comes, what is promoting Vata? So that could very well go back to the mind. And according to Ayurveda, the mind is the source of all disease. So in terms of Vata, we would look for excess worry, fear, anxiousness, things that cause the body to move around. Like when you're getting interviewed and you're nervous, you tend to move. That's Vata, that's wind moving through the system. That's how we express anxiousness.
Okay, and then so you also mentioned that as part of the treatment modality, the practitioner, quote unquote, would give them supplementation, dietary changes, but also work on their mind through counseling, you're saying?
Most definitely, particularly when you look in the Tibetan form of Ayurveda, they very much believe that about 50% of the therapy is going to be in counseling. The rest of it will be in medicine.
50%?
Most definitely. And again, if you follow disease in that tradition, the mind is the source of all disease. And that's really very easy to consider. And if that's true, then the mind should be where we spend a majority of our time in considering any pathology.
So they're trying
in Ayurveda, I might say, the mind is where you get the opportunity disease. They also felt that you could get diseases from outside influences. They did talk about karma, or the accumulation of what they would maybe consider karma, or maybe even what we would say in the West maybe is a wrongdoing. I tend to align karmic diseases with genetics. So the karma of my family's biology, or the genetics that I come from, in other words, my cellular history, my karma, could also create a disease state. So I do believe those are the 2 considerations to look for: outside influences and inside influences, karmic or genetics, and of course the mind. And if you look at the term epigenomics, the consideration of how much genes and environment work together to create and manifest health and disease, that seems like they're saying the same thing.
Well, there's a lot to learn to put my mind at ease, rather than, in most cases, dis-ease. Where can we learn more about this? You've got a website and more information or recommended books?
Particularly for the Himalayan Drug Company, you can go to HimalayaUSA.com. That's the company that we have, obviously, in North America. The home office is actually in Bangalore, India, and that's at HimalayaHealthcare.com. And you can go to either of those resources to get more information.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.